Okay, so today, the first topic we'll touch on the building inspection and testing. As what I mentioned, this is where within the calendar year, we always have this fire cert inspection, and it's always engaging the QP, MAE, professional engineers to come in to verify things that whether it's in order before they really recommend for the renewal for the fire cert. So that is something that probably we need to do, I would say 2 months before, two months before, in the sense that we should target 2 months before expiry to get this done. So definitely the inspection will need to carry out at least a month or two earlier. All right, because in between, I think there's always a challenges whereby things may fail. All right, we have cases whereby QB comes in, they look at the sprinkler pump system, or is actually in the off mode. They can just walk up and just say that no, we're going to fail you because when it comes in, the sprinkler system supposed to be automatic system, but it was turned off and there's no notice. So he felt that no, let's carry out the inspection again. So these are things that happens, because when that things happen to us, definitely we need to answer to the landlord, to the building owners, right, on why this is happening. All right, even for certain premises, they actually require us to send in the impairment notice, telling their insurance that, hey, look, my sprinkler system is down. This is what I want to do. What is the timeline? So things will follow through that process of telling your tenants what has not been so-called operating, functioning properly within the building. So very important for us to really know, the requirements from the tenants, especially when talk about, FM Global, they may have a different requirements on this. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so learning outcome. To explain the rationale of the annual fire cert renewal process, to explain the scope of safety, to be the scope of fire safety works to be inspected and tested for the fire cert renewal. All right, so this overview, that's what I mentioned. All right, so under this notification 2020, all right, so we are supposed to get the fire cert. And there was a time that SCDF going around, making sure that all the non-residential buildings will get the fire cert inspection notice. And that first inspection, the SCDF will want to come in. All right. The subsequent one, usually they will allow the QP to run their own show. But you can see these are the requirements for public building. Any occupant load that's more than 200%, right? You need to get a fire cert. Industrial buildings or any dormitories, any load that more than 1,000 people, right? Floor area that's at least 5,000 square meters, which is about 50,000 square feet, or above 8-story height, which is about 24 meters in habitable height, all right, and a hospital. And any private residential building, because you see now is the review requirements on these private residential buildings that exceed 24 meters in habitable height or more than 8-story height. All right, you required to install the following: whether you need a wet riser, or you need a firefighting automatic alarm system, or it is sprinkler system. All right, so all these we need to install in even residential unit, because we also seen that SCDF have really moved into the residential areas this couple of, I think, years. All right. Here's one of the incidents that I can share with you guys, because it's residential, and when the landlord wanted, or the so-called the MCSD per se, wanted to save costs. In fact, in the residential building, people don't really care about your ventilation fan. But when this thing was being raised, SCDF comes in to spot check, and this was not done, then yeah, it will become another big issue that people rush in to get all this rectified. So it's very important. I mean, for those that in condo, that your building is more than 8-story high. MV fan usually is being ignored, right? Because nobody will do MV fan maintenance. Sometimes we'll just engage someone to look into it, but usually in most cases, this is kind of like always being ignored. So like, let's say you are in that residential, environment, I think it's good to look into the MV fan. Someone must look into it to see whether does it react. All right, if let's say it doesn't able to function after you turn on, then yeah, something is wrong. Then we need to do something about it, right? Because if not, you'll be for a notice, and the SCDF will give you that very hard deadline for you to meet. all right, then yeah, that create a lot of people for us to rush it out and to put forth, because when the cost is quite substantial or even replace the MV fan, right, it can be quite costly, especially when it was installed in those above like 3 meters, or something can go up to 10 to 12 meters, and that will cost quite a fair bit of the money to the landlord or to the MCST committee. All right. So fire cert, yes, apply for buildings and cluster buildings that is so-called in the gazette. So we also must make known that a person must not occupy or use building that without any fire cert. So this is a very critical certificate that we need to have. And please make sure that your passenger leave, your cargo leave, let's say there is a fireman leave, all these will also need to be maintained in a way. Because if let's say the passenger leave doesn't able to home, or the e-box fail, yeah, then that will be another problem for you to solve. So it's always good for us to get prepared, especially on those key installation. All right, your leave, your fireman leave especially. All right, and also all your sprinkler systems, should there be any. All right, so there's a risk penalty very similar, all right, to the rest as well. It's either you can go jail, you can go prison, or you can actually subject to so-called a penalty, both fine and as well as jail term. All right, fire cert. So fire cert, effective date for first fire cert. All right, it must be obtained 12 months within the calendar year. All right, within the year, not calendar, sorry, within a year, 12 months from the TOP or fire safety certificate is being obtained. So anyone can tell me what's the difference between TFP and fire safety certificate? I think I remember I did ask this question before. Anyone can recall? What's the difference?
Temporarily, it's for those building just being built.
Sorry?
For new
TFP
buildings,
what?
for new building just being built, right? Temporarily for TOP, so then you have this TFP.
Yep. Correct. I'm asking what's the difference between temporary fire permit as well as the what is TFP, temporary fire permit, versus fire safety certificate?
Okay, the fire certificate is annually. They normally SCDF will send a renewal letter for them to check whether all this compliance is met or not.
Then temporary?
Temporarily is just one time only during the TOP period.
Yep, you're right in a way. Temporary is one time, then the rest is all I mean, let's say based on building for building per se. But let's say for example a building that is a lot of tenanted space, let's say a tenant need to do any fit out, they need to get their own fire safety certificate. They may issue temporary fire permit as well. I mean, the key difference between the TFP and fire safety certificate, the difference in terms of okay, the impact is almost the same, because once you get a TFP or FSC, right, you will likely to get your TOP, because TOP, before get a TOP, this is the first criteria, making sure the firefighting provision that is installed in the building is functioning. All right. So TFP, as the name suggested, temporary fire permit. So meaning to say that probably you have solved more than 90% of the issues. All right, left only 10%, 5%, those minor compliance issues that probably SCDF can accept. That yep, these are the minor ones. Yep, you can continue with getting your contractors to come in to do the fit out. All right, while we are trying to resolve all these minor issues that's been raised in the so-called approval in a way in your TFP. All right. So FC, yes, you need to renew annually. All right, that's a must. As I mentioned to you, regardless of what kind of certificate, whether it's fire cert, we're talking about what EMA cert, or you have any PTO cert, right, the permit to operate. These days, the GOBO have moved, all right, 2 months before. So 2 months before, expected you need to get the cert. So you need to kind of like react even earlier, at least 1 or 2 months before. Unless you're very confident that it will pass at the first instant, that's fine. All right, a lot of prep work need to be in before you even engage the QP in order to save costs for the building. All right, some other buildings, what they do is they really don't save costs because they have time, right? They plan for it earlier. They will ask the leave contractors, ask the LVW, ask the genset guy. Let's say there's a fire curtain guy also, to come in earlier. To say, hey, let's plan. I will have a fire cert. Can you just, treat it as your maintenance? All right, when you come in, you do a maintenance as well, then yeah, there will be any charge. I mean, that can be done, but definitely you need to coordinate even well so that it can be done during your so-called your fire safety inspection in a way. All right. So yeah, as the third point I mentioned, yeah, 2 months before. All right. So the GoPro have moved. In the past, when there's no electronic submission, we can do even up to the day that it will expire. Then you send in, they say, oh, we have submitted, and the payment will follow. All right. So now things have changed, and just make sure that you react faster. All right, to the expiry date. So FC, there's 3 parts. All right. So there's Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3. So there will be a form filled by the PE, all right, mainly on the M&E equipment that's installed in the building. And the third one, the third form is, we will be the one, going through that and witness how the testing goes and to verify on behalf of the landlord. And most important thing, at the end of the day, you need to pay. If you don't pay the application fees, then you will not get the cert. All right. So very importantly, please, make sure the payment will be made, because there's no, there is no definite cost, all right, to this fire cert. Based on what we can see, like for example, you're talking about your PTO license, right? Usually it's fixed at $20 per leaf. But for fire safety certificate, the fee itself will vary. We'll see 200 over 300, 300, 200, yeah, that range. So it differs from site to site. I know that there's no really a clear definition that I know that you will charge for fixed fees. All right, you will subject to the fees it's being charged. Then based on that, yeah, that will be a consistent fees that they will charge unless there's an increase thereafter. All right. So this is a flow chart for the application for fire cert. So you can see start application, then you submit the form. But I would say before even the start, we need to make sure we check all the various parties, whoever doing the maintenance, make sure everything is in order, especially your key infrastructures installation, like your genset, like your leaf maintenance, like your MV fan, all right, your ACMV, all right, extraction system in particular, as well as the fire protection. All right, so these are the things that you need to make sure you get it done, everything is okay. Then you can start planning for FCs, because definitely we want to really pass it at the first instance. All right, if let's say you're going to do it at the second time, I'm sure people ask you why this was not prepared. All right, who was supposed to pay for this additional cost to the building? All right, so very importantly, I think if let's say you are the FM or the PM guy, yeah, you need to do it. I mean, this is something that probably is become a norm these days, because this had been started at least, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. All right, so documents submitted is Form 1, 2, 3. All right, and the fees itself. If nothing happened, all right, you don't submit, yep, there's some enforcement action to be taken. If you submit, they check documents not in order, they also have this so-called written directives to the owners. You got to redo again. If you're in order, see whether you're lucky enough to have selected for this audit check. If there's no audit check on these particular buildings, all right, so they recommend for the fire cert insurance, and they'll issue the FCs. But if let's say it was being picked, all right, for this audit check, then you do the inspection. In order, yep, you're safe. If let's say it's not in order, yep, that written directive will be written to the owner to rectify. All right. So once it's done, during inspection again, it's in order, yep, you'll get a cert. If not in order, again, enforcement action could be taken on the building owners or occupiers. All right, so fire cert, things to be checked by us, FSM or buildings owners. All right, so can see mainly are non-MAE stuff, right? Hose shield without a pump. All right, so the hose shield system, because that water that coming into the building, right, through the main pipe. All right, so the main pipe where it comes in, you go into, right, domestic line, you go into the fire line. So with that fire line, the pressure is good enough, right? Because it can be supplied straight to the hose reel, or they can actually supply through the hydrant. So hydrant have another, another so-called flow rate that need to fulfill. All right. So hose reel system without a pump. We talk about fire extinguisher, manual fire alarm system, right? Usually you activate the fire alarm through what? Through the call point. all right, or you actually open up the panel and press on that evacuation so-called alarm, right? Then emergency lightings, all right, exit sign, fire door, exit door, riser. That is important for us. Usually, all right, during inspection, let's say there's a riser door, please try to open up and you take a look. Whether anyone store any other stuff that's inside, especially they always like to store what? Store paint. I want to put it here so that it is not unsightly, but they forget about it's actually flammable materials. All right, people will put a lot of stuff inside. So we as the FSM, when we walk around the building, riser doors is one of the things that we need to open and check. Right, try to open up as much as possible to check. Especially you have nothing to report. There's nothing new to report. Please make sure you check more thorough, because definitely it cannot be the same thing. I mean, all these years, right? I don't have really a time whereby even I cannot come in, every month. Every month report will have a different thing to report. Will have something. Either the thing has been done and not been done. It cannot be consistent. Right. In the past, what people try to do is, okay, I come in January, I take this photo from this angle, move a bit, take another angle for next month, then move a bit, take for March. All right. So yeah, please don't do that. These days it can be easily caught, right? So what I do, prevent things that people may raise queries that whether they attend or do I inspect the building on a monthly basis. Usually I go to the guardhouse, ask for the occurrence book, ask him to put my name there in red that I visited for fire safety inspection. All right, the in and out report through the guard. At least there's some documents to show that you have done your part on a regular basis. All right, once you get out caught, I tell you, yep, landlord likely they will change FSM and also your reputation will be affected. In the FM line, PM line, yeah, is this small? Everybody will know everybody in a way. All right, so staircase, as I mentioned, always check 100%. There's no stamping check. Passageway, signages. Let's say there's a theater, there's a cinema. Yep, please do your own check as well. All right, so these are the code of practice Singapore standard that is pertaining to the fire. So you can see there's one whole list over here. All right, in fact, there's so many, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's 10 or 15 or 15, 16. Definitely, we will not able to go through everything. I mean, that's why we need the QP. All right, all these Singapore standard code of practice. Yep, they will need to understand much better than us. And what we need to do is just to make sure that we go through the inspection. All right, in terms of all items that is installed in the building will be tested, except for detectors. What's the percentage? Do we need to test 100% of detectors every year? Anyone tell me? Can tell me? Do we need to?
No.
No need.
Don't need. And how? What's the percentage?
20% every 5
Yes,
years.
correct. So yeah, it's 20%. So every 5 years, it's supposed to check 100%. All right. But I think so far I have not seen anyone really do that. I mean, even myself, I think probably you can't. But I mean, that's why the QP usually you'll be selected, and not every year he'll be the one pick up this. But I think it's important for them to do roughly 20% of the check by walking around the premises. All right. Let's say, for example, there's 5-story, right? You take it. Oh, okay. Every year I'll do 1 story, but try not to do this because you know why? You will never know, because it's like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. You never know what going to happen. No? So I rather do random checks. So every floor there'll be 20% being checked. Rather than you check level 1, 100%, then level 2 next year, level 3. No, I don't think better don't do that. Rather than walking around, then then we do that random check better. I think that would be better. I mean, ideally, definitely it will be good that there's really a plan in detail that, oh, this is where I have, where is the location of my heat detector, smoke detectors. I want to test based on that schedule. If let's say, yep, that would be ideal situation. If let's say that somebody that can do it, I mean, yep, I would think that is something that is really, really, really thorough, which is something very good. But in fact, in what we see on a day-to-day, because of high staff turnover, or we're not getting the same QP, things may not be as comprehensive as what is supposed to be lah. So I think importantly, just get the QP. I think you also understand. I think just ask you to do every floor about 20%. I think that should work. All right. Okay, building inspection. So fundamentals of fire safety design. All right, we also look at to the detection alarm system. We look into the means of escape. All right, the exit door, the staircases, and the prevention of spread. Whether do you do you have any SSL, FFL, smoke stop lobbies, firefighting lobbies, and make sure all these important areas, right, should not have anything being stopped, even for temporary basis. Right? Tell them there's no way that you can leave that goods or whatever things, especially those flammable materials. Please get all these out. All right, from the staircase, from the smoke stop lobby SSL, from the firefighting lobbies as well. All right, fire suppression is all about your sprinkler system. All right, you have pre-action or deluge system that will need to be checked, and that's why the waterproofing test is important, to just make sure that the pressure that is supposed to run is something that we have checked and we have verified that yes, the pressure is more than the minimum requirements. All right. Then for the scope of fire safety works to be inspected and tested, we look into architectural. Okay, we look into MAE portion. Architecture are those like your exit door, and also the whether the fire rating or maybe someone removed the fire door. We also look into thing in terms of building structures element. All right, so it's important for us to take note on that, because usually for architecture, that what we have shared earlier on is very much related to FSM. The MAE side portion of it, that will be covered by the QP itself. All right, so he will need to do the check. Usually what I do is usually follow the QP lah, so you know roughly what he's doing. All right, anything that is not sure, then I can probably guide him along the way. All right, so fire protection system, that is very critical, especially a sprinkler system, because these will fight fire automatically. When this thing is down, then that will have a huge concern in terms of whether the building is able to withstand any fire that's happening in any of the floors. Right, so ACMV, MVAC, right, is also same thing. ACMV, your air conditioning system. All right, because ACMV is the one that, or AHU, all right, providing the air into the tenanted space. Should there be any fire, definitely we need to cut off the air supply. All right, so the AHU will not be running. All right, once the so-called the return, right, detected a smoke, all right, in the tenanted unit, so meaning to say that there's a fire. All right, I will need to stop all the air supply. Right, by removing oxygen and also not providing oxygen into it, that we're able to control the fire from spreading as well. All right, so architecture works. You can see the lobby, staircase, corridors, the numbering, the service part that's not allowed within the staircase, as it escape floor plan that's actually usually in the these lobbies. All right, finishes to the wall, to the ceiling are non-combustible. So this one a bit more challenging because, as mentioned, you need to have these class 0 materials. All right, because of the fire, I think SCDF went round. I think I did share you guys. So very importantly, please, anything that you think is combustible, anything is flammable, ask them to remove from the staircase, and please put them in the report. All right, if you see really there's a risk and you see there's so many pin that's being housed at level 1, level 2, level 3 over the shop, write the email to the tenant, write the email to the the respective affected tenants or SP, all right, owners themselves, to make sure that you put your point across that you need to remove. All right, what's the date of inspection? How many times have you react to them? Because if let's say they are not really cooperative, they refuse to do so. So the last weapon, all right, we could activate is what? SCDF. Okay, because sometimes when we don't engage them, because in the past, I think what I know is when we report to SCDF, right? SCDF come in, they will just find the owner. That's not the point, right? Because definitely we're acting on behalf of the landlord. All right. So as long as we have done our part, we have shown SCDF, right? We didn't come to you just when we actually encounter some obstacle. All right, we didn't reach out to you immediately, but we have done all the talks. We have negotiated. We have brought the landlord rep even down to their office to discuss and to resolve this problem. But things not moving. yes, SCDF will come in, because that's where, with all the evidence, SCDF will handle the tenants directly. And I would say in most of the cases that I know of, so far is 100% compliance, in the sense that once SCDF write to them, usually immediately they'll react to it. Because without any fire safety certificate for that tenanted unit, they can say that, hey, close for business. Right, because it's not safe. You shouldn't work inside the premises, and that's where this is how serious it is, and this is where the tenants, they will not go and play so-called, let's say, games, cat and mouse with the SCDF officers, because they know that definitely they are on the losing end, because it's reflected in the act, and this thing has been done over a period of time, and you have not really responded positively to that advice from the building management. All right. So clear obstruction, I told you, staircase 100% check. All right. Don't do randomly. All right, because that is really something that we need to do on a monthly basis, because we only come in once a month. So that's why I told you, staircase, please 100% walk through it. Architecture works, all right, escape route. Yes, it must be clear of obstruction, all right, directional exit sign. Can see this direction sign, we see the exit. Where should you go? You should go straight, turn right, or turn left?
Left.
Left. So you can see, this is the signage that we need to take note. All right, if let's say the signage is wrong, whether it's supposed to go straight, turn left, turn right, then you can take the photos and telling the whoever have installed this, or whoever that's involved, either it's tenanted space or is it common areas, then that belongs to a landlord cost to get it rectified. All right. And you also can check, usually for exit, like there is this black button over here. Once you press into it, the battery pack is supposed to kick in to make sure that it's able to light up. If you can't, then something that we need to do. All right, but because by right, all these supposed to light up at least an hour. All right, like that an hour. All right, so electromagnetic devices, right, when the door closes, all right, you must automatically close the door, but don't lock it. All right, if you lock it, yeah, then something that you need to highlight to say that you cannot lock it. But if let's say you install EM lock, yes, you can, provided you provide that door release features, just like another core point, just like in different color. Usually it's in white or it's in green, just next to the door. All right. Okay. Sorry. Wow. Hope I run so fast. Sorry. Okay. All right. So fire door exit door, you can see the label, the fire rating. This all at the back of the somewhere near the hinge. If let's say you're doing any repainting, please remind your painters, don't go and paint over it, because I need to see whether is it half an hour or an hour. Usually, even I know that 99.9% probably is half an hour. All right, but ask them do not paint over it. All right, door closer must be intact. All right, there shouldn't be any locking device. All right, and it's clear of obstruction again. Okay. Then fire exit access, it must be clear of obstruction. All right, the fire exit access, please make sure it's clear. They will not, they shouldn't have kind of like, do it as these are temporary parking lot, these are the temporary loading bay. No, it's 100% clear. All right, 100% clear. Okay. Then all the marking of the corners, the FAD, that's something that we can check, especially for the FAD or the fire access panel that is in the tenanted unit. Just make sure that 1 meter from that panel, it shouldn't be involved. It shouldn't have anything that obstruct, right? Because the firemen need to get access to it. Sometimes that is full of smoke, they can't see. If let's say within that meter there's something inside there, even a chair or table, he didn't see it, he jump in, he may get himself injured. All right. So please, importantly, by right, you shouldn't have anything in front of this fire access panel. All right. You can check. You don't believe, you go to your office, you can see whether your fire access panel, whether is there anything in front. If let's say there is, meaning to say that your project management team may not do a good job. All right. Because there's somewhere you will obstruct the fireman to get access into a unit when it comes to emergencies. And I think for newer buildings, they also have these, locking device. You can actually lock or open probably can open from outside, right? Rather than actually, break the glass and jump in. So I think in the newer building, you can see it's all there's this locking device. Access opening, all right. And also, I mean, yeah, this is the FAP as mentioned to you guys, because this and the hard stand will actually come in a pair. So the hard stand is where the fire engine will park. All right, the extension of the armor that's coming from the fire engine supposed to reach all these fire access panel. All right, and inside, please, this is where the wording we need to have. Do not obstruct. All right, based on what I get from SCDF, allowance be around 1 meter. All right, so compartmentation is something that we can look out for. Because very commonly in those older buildings, you can tell you the fire stop material is something that you weren't able to see. There's always opening a hole in the wall that is not so-called separating the containment of the fire from one enclosed space to the other. All right, even from floor to floor, side to side adjacent units. Right, we need to make sure that is kind of like filled up with fire stop materials. All right, and the wall height, yeah, I mentioned to you guys, in commercial space, industrial, yeah, sometimes maybe. All right, because I mentioned to you the rental in the industrial is like some is even less than $1, but these days $1 to less than $2 for sure. When you talk about commercial building, the rental it can varies from outskirts of CBD $5, $6. Some even want to go to $7, but rarely lah. But when it comes to CBD, it's like wow, $7, $8, $9, $10, and we also seen the rental can go up to even $12 or even $15 for one of two buildings, those very new buildings. You can see the difference in terms of the dollar per square feet. Because of that, people want to really make full use of the space. So asset managers, what they do, they want to carve up. Rather than actually putting a one floor per unit, right? They say I want to carve out little space. I want to maximize, or I want to increase my dollar sign per square feet, and that's why people will do it. And that's why sometimes people will just forget you need to do a full height partition. All right, so that is the compartmentation that we want to see. It's not floor ceiling then I do only up to floor ceiling, but that floor ceiling get above, that will be the biggest area. In fact, the fire will just spread over to the other unit. So very important. If let's say there is a compartmentation to be done, make sure it's a full height, right? Then under miscellaneous, about change of use. I mean, people always like to be very creative, creating additional floor. Allow people to stay there, allow people to really rent another area, and this is quite popular in the past. But I think SCDF make it very clear. I mean, for warehouses in the whether in the Tuas or Woodlands or in the Changi area, we can see people always want to make full use. While they build all the different deck, but they forget to submit for SCDF approval. In fact, all these deck underneath, they're supposed to have another layer of sprinkler head as well. All right. So SCDF found it, you didn't submit, then you ask you so-called go and do the submission. If not, by a certain date, you need to remove it. All right. Okay, obstruction to fire protection system. You can see over here, sometimes all these are being obstructed. And let's say they don't want to, hang any of the fire extinguisher. They find it, very unsightly. They put inside. They put inside the fire hose. Yes, nothing wrong. You can, but provided you make sure there's a signage, all right, into it. Then for wholesale, dry riser, outlet, all these, it must be displayed, especially the instructions that you need to turn on the valve before it runs the hose. All right. So now we come into that phase 1 fire alarm activation. So this is the first step. So usually when you want to carry out building inspection as well as fire alarm activation together, then that's where sometimes rarely that happens, but it happens. In some of the building, they say, why not we do a real one, a real fire drill on that actual day. So what I need to do as the flow as what you have seen over here, right? Depends with the QP. Sometimes we will inform the decamp that we are doing or I would say most of the time I would say that we are doing fire drill. So any signal that you receive, take it as it's a false alarm so that you can save them some time. But sometimes people say, hey, I want to test whether they can pay attention. That can be done, but I think rarely lah. But I think usually we are more proactive, informing the camp that, hey, look, we're doing fire drill. Once it's done, we'll inform you so that any fire alarm signal that you know, then you can call the escalation tree to make sure that this it will be verified whether it's a real fire or it's a false alarm. Right. Then we're going to make sure that all the lightings, mechanical ventilation, building services, all operating at a normal condition. Just like in a normal office, the kind of operations that we want to see. All right. Then someone need to activate the fire alarm. All right. So during your fire drill, right? Usually the first one, usually a bit boring lah. You just okay lah, I just want to break that norms. The common, the main lift lobby, all the lift lobby, all on fire. Ask them to find another alternative route. All right, that would be the first one usually what I'll do. All right, so that everybody know that what is another escape route that is linked to my office, whether it works or not. All right, I need to find out first. I need to break the norm. I need to make sure that other than the path that I'm taking to come to work, leave for home, that path no longer available. What should I do? All right, then that'll be useful for all the occupiers to really realize that, hey, there is exit staircase at the back. It's just beside me, where to go to. So I think that is a very good exercise. Other than that, probably at the regular basis, let's say you're conducting this for the third time, fourth time, fifth time, then you can create some more exciting, drills. That's what I do. Okay, ask the fire protection guy, security text time, hey, go to certain floor, certain call point, activate fire alarm. I want to see how fire warden react, how long it takes. I want to see my CERT team, can they reach that holding area at 1 minute? Can they reach the fire destination at 5 minutes? So all these will need to have that drill, and this will consider as what? As a training by SCDF during fire drill. One stone kill two birds. Right? Then that is something that you can show to SCDF that you have all these refreshing, refresher course with your CERT team. All right. So after activate fire alarm, definitely you check the FIB is actually the fire indication board. So the sub alarm panel, the main alarm panel, is there any indication? Is the indication correct or not? I mean, this is always done on a monthly basis because the fire alarm system we need to check on a monthly basis. Right. Then the signal, does it go to the camp? Right. From my understanding, signal go to the camp at the same time, you'll go to SCDF. Right, the nearest fire station. So why 2 minutes? Because when this thing is being activated, SCDF will take it as it's emergency, I'm on the way. The 2 minutes is just to make sure that within the 2 minutes, SCDF can be sure that, sorry, false alarm. Then, yep, they can U-turn back. But if let's say we reach there, then it's a false alarm, then you will charge, all right, the activation fees to the respective landlord. Right, not so much of the cost or the penalty or the administrative fees that we are paying for the activation, but I think more importantly, we also want to make sure that the fireman will be activated for the real reasons, right? So that it can actually save resources and also cut down all the unnecessary traveling, creating inconvenience for the road user as well. I mean, as much as I can see, we need to do the right thing. All right, we need to do the right thing. All right, then we will look at the lift, whether to leave home, automatic door, the release, the smoke entry system, does it react to weight, the atrium system, all right, same thing with the, whether you are using the venting method or the mechanical means of opening, so-called extracting the smoke out of the building, all right, the pressurization fan system, whether do you actually have that 110 Newton, all right, what are the pressure they're looking at, because all these will be taken by the QP, and we just need to verify, all right, not more than 110 Newton positive pressures within the staircase, all right, the magnetic door, whether it can be released, all right, if let's say it cannot be released, then we need to activate, right, how to release the door, because when there's no power supply, yes, definitely, it's actually, have really bypassed. I mean, the door really bypassed so that you can actually, open up your exit door to go out from your premises, from a tenanted space. All right. Okay, phase 2. So phase 2, after you completed, then what you do is really reset everything. sub alarm panel reset, main alarm panel reset, then it will reset all the leaf, all the president fans in the FCCs. So once you reset every single thing, everything back in order, all right, then depends on whether you want to bypass, all right, bypass to the leaf, because the thing happens for the second time and leaf will not be affecting the tenants. The tenants, you can take the leaf up and down, from the office, or the visitors can visit them. All right. Then you activate all your fire pumps. Right. Activate all your fire alarm. Then you trip the normal supply. Meaning to say that, for example, you assume everything running. All right. Fire alarm activated. Then you trip the normal supply. See whether, all right, your UPS, all right, in your PA system, does it work? The battery pack, does it work? All right, so all these will be tested, and all your ARD, your auto rescue device, your epochs, everything, is it working or not? All right, so QP will go around and do that check. All right, then in terms of all these are the various systems that they will check once they trip the normal supply, how they react in that so-called power outage situation. All right, because when come to our outage, we also want to make sure what the genset need to kick in, because within that 15 seconds, all right, normal power of it, genset supposed to kick in within that 15 seconds. All right, but the change from normal supply to your UPS to your battery pack, right, is probably not more than a minute, a second, right, a second. Okay, phase 3. So phase 3, first phase 1, we actually will test fire alarm activation. Phase 2, power outage. The third phase, we will test individual system. All right, restore normal power, we set everything, bypass the leaf so the leaf can be working, check the frame alarm panel, sub alarm panel, all directional sign, and whether is it being lighted up. All right, then we'll look at all the detectors, right? The core points, the whole show system. All right, your smoke cut off switch in the A shoe. All right, the fire pump, the diesel pump. Talk about the waterproofing test, right? We also talk about the hydrostatic test on dry riser. All right, so eventually what we need to do is really testing out the system individually. Do they give the reading that I want? All right, do they give the flow rate that I want, especially on the hydrant side? Because hydrant usually they don't have any pumps. Straight away is the pressure from the main supply. All right, and there's a big valve that usually will open it only during the testing. But I think in most of the cases, especially for older buildings, especially 20 years and above, right? Sometimes it may be luck, you open up the valve, you try to close it, sorry, you can close it completely. Then that will be a problem, and then that will another problem that we need to get it resolved. All right, okay. Okay, so when testing building services, the anemometers, we're testing all the the air velocity, right? The 1 meter per second. That's across the pressurized fan, the pressurized staircase, and also whether the sports lobby or firefighting lobbies. All right, so we need to test the air velocities using this, because you can use this to test your air balancing as well. All right. Then the hydrant testing kit, that's why you need to test the flow rate, the pressure. Do we have the right pressure? Do we have the right flow rate? All right. Then the jitters fall gauge is actually to test the 110 Newton. All right. So these are the equipment usually we don't need to buy. All right. These will be provided by the QP themselves, or the fire protection guy will need to cater all this. So make sure when you want to arrange such thing, check whoever supposed to come in, do they bring their own meters, or it will be something that we need to purchase from landlord side. But in most cases, usually, the QP, you will be there, but the fire protection guy will have all these equipment to stand by. Okay. All right, lux meter is to measure, that illuminations level. All right, so to see whether how strong is your lightings. The sound meters, decibel, and testing the noise being created, especially during those kind of hacking period whereby anyone will do fit out, right? Yeah, after office hour, during office hour, there this decibel regulated, being so-called recommended by NEA, right? That's why you need to do this decibel reading, right? So distance is where usually we need to test, right, the width of the corridor. Some usually using this to test or to have an aggregation estimation of how big is the space, right? Okay, so for lift homing system, the power failure, the lift car remain open. Yep, the fireman lift need to home first, and also to see whether can we operate from inside, right? So fireman lift, one activated, we need to go inside the lift to react to it. Any external party at the lift lobby to press to call for the passenger lift, a fireman lift, it will not respond, right? So the only a fireman or whoever that's inside, but usually firemen are inside. Press stop, unless somebody asks you for help. There's someone need to be inside, likely to be the third team, all right? Then for epochs, as one mentioned, in the entire, the full name to it is actually emergency battery operated power supply. As the main name suggested, is a battery. It's just a battery to make sure that during their power failure, at least you have ventilation, you still have light, all right? Okay, so fireman lift, if you look at the fire switch, usually is by the side. Right, sometimes you will see some evacuation lift. Right, when you see evacuation lift, meaning to say that it's a passenger lift and the power supply is being supported by the e-source as well. Right, but for fireman lift, that is where the fireman will use. All right. So as the lift, as what I mentioned, it will not respond to external landing call. Right, only can react internally. Okay. So question to everybody, if let's say there's a fire, level 10, I should take the fireman lift, go where? Level 12 or level 8?
Level 8.
Level 8. Yeah. Oh, level 8, 2-4 people. Right. So exit light illumination level sufficient. So usually what they do is about when it comes to test, they'll test whether you have minimum 0.5 lux, right, on the floor to make sure that it can last for an hour. Right, so all the emergency light will be tested, but usually they will not be test an hour, but they will let it go around, then QP will walk around, then aggravation, they think, oh, it's sufficient, then yep, it will pass. So exit light also important because this is something that always being ignored, all right? Nobody care about it. But when you really become an FSM, that's where we need to check. That's where we need to remind, all right, whether it's the landlord or it's the tenanted unit that we see all this is not operating, just ask them to rectify the problem. All right. Then one-way PA system, all right, the one-way EDCs, all right. So usually this is the console. You can see there's a lot of buttons over here. You can press the fire floor, 2-4 above, 2-4 below, or you can select, press, talk to all. All right. Okay, and there will be secondary power supply as well. So meaning you say that when you say secondary power supply is the e-source, right? It will be supported by the e-board, meaning the genset will kick in, will provide power for this PA system. If a two-way, what they do is test the fireman intercom and the private line. All right, this versus this. All right, and this usually they will talk through, see whether the phone can talk to one another. I mean, this day because of we have all the WhatsApp group, the telegrams. If you have, I think, yep, definitely no one can stop you because ultimately we also want to have that communication channels, right? As what I mentioned, the fire safety techniques, the most important thing is what? The communication, right? Communication. So all the various strategic location, the fireman lift lobbies, the pump room, AHU room, lift motor room. So all these will place fire phone. Okay. All right, dry riser main level, main breaching inlet. All right, so usually blank cap, everything's empty. There's a wording over here, making sure it says the same thing. All right, you must see the right thing as well, whether it's dry riser, wet riser. In dry riser, usually it's painted in yellow color. All right, you must put there dry riser main outlet. But numbering, as mentioned to you, what's the numbering? Let's say 3-5, 5-5, or 5-9, different wording sequence, it will tell you a different thing as well. Right? The blank cap must be provided and it must paint in yellow. Right? So landing valve for dry riser, you can see all these will be padlock. Okay, it will be numbered as well. right? So it must be free of obstructions. Okay. So dry riser means stack. You can see the number will be labeled. All right, be labeled in such a way. For example, this is what 1-5. All right, 1-5. Directional flow. Right, whether is protected, because you see this is actually a staircase, and that's why you need a fire rated board to protect all these important installation, because this is where people can actually sabotage. All right, let's say it's a dry riser, you see you protect this, right, with a fire rated board. Air releasing valve is where you can see at the top of the riser to make sure that when the air bubble is being captured in the pipe, ultimately you flow up, you escape through the air releasing valve. Right, earthing is important as well. All right, all these will be earthed accordingly. All right, and the valve, okay, the drain valve usually at the lowest point, all right, so it can drain off the water. Because for dry riser, right, ultimately, you need to empty it off. All right, we have cases whereby there was this incident. Someone reached out to us saying that, hey, there was this leaking. Then we say, what is the event? What have you done recently? Anything that's abnormal that you've done it? They say, because he couldn't find, so he called us. It happened to me and my colleague is actually inside a car. So when they called, then we say, okay, let's go down and see, because cannot be, all of a sudden, there's this leaking. So when we look into it, then we say ask about what are things that is happen within the premise, what is happening recently, or what is being carried out in the morning. So when they say, oh, there is this fire cert inspection, then the dry riser, they do and test, they put the water inside, right? They measure whether do they have this 200 psi, right? You can see when the thing is filled with water, you need to drain off. That's why all these draining valve, right, is there, right? Make sure you're able to drain off all the water, all right, because that is a dry riser, all right, for low rise, especially for the basement car parks. All right, performance check, air releasing valve, make sure it's functioning. All right, when you press, you see that the air is actually escaping. All right, the hydrostatic test, to make sure that you reach the 200 psi for at least 2 hours. Right, what they test is really to test whether the integrity of the wall of the so-called piping, right? Do they give way? If you give way, then something is very serious, because let's say it's through wear and tear, and that's where you need to know. All right, we need to repair. All right, for that particular section in the dry riser. All right, so wet riser. All right, all the wordings. I mean, we usually we don't really label in such manner. We don't WR, so we always put like 1-5, 1-3, things like that. Right, breaching inlet, all these must be mentioned, because breaching inlet is important because they add more water supply, more flow rate into the system. All right, because when they design for this building, definitely they will assume, okay, these are the basics, but it can happen for anything that's more serious. That's why all these breaching inlet is installed, to make sure that we have additional water to help to supply. Because whatever water coming in flow, right, there's always a limit. But if let's say the outflow is worse than what was being in the design, then definitely you cannot catch up, right? When the flow or the water inside the pipe cannot catch up, then we need to have breaching inlet so that we can add additional water supply into the system, right? Okay. Right, storage tank, usually there's some capacity over here. Look at the water meters, water level, whether is it visible. If not visible, what I do usually, okay, because it's firefighting fire tank, right? So the water inside is not for consumption. Either you put a ping pong ball, a color ping pong ball, or what, you just put it inside, or styrofoam, to make sure that you can see the level of water, right? So if let's say the waffle valve give way or it's not operating at hell, no one will know it. There's a seepage. It's only after a month we see a bill like, oh, how come it's 10,000, 20,000? Right. So importantly, as let's say your PFM, I think we need to take the daily water and electricity consumption on a daily basis. All right. Okay. Okay, for the pumps, you can see it's a 2 different set. It's not the sprinkler system. It will be the wet riser system. All right. All these will need to padlock. All right, this is a jockey pump. I mean, in the practical, I think we'll go through that. Where is the incoming? Because usually for the older pump, you're unable to see the water flow. All right. All right, so the pressure gauge switch provided the discharge drain valve, you need to see whether or not that drain valve is working or not, because that's why that is where the the fall protection guy is testing. All right, the cut in cut out of your pump. Do they reach certain pressure? Then the thing cut in. Do they cut in at the right PSI? Do they cut out at the right PSI? All right, so pumps will paint in red. All right, for wet riser pumps. So wet riser pump is totally separated from the sprinkler pump because it's two different systems. Right, because it's high rise, you need to pump water out higher. That's why the pumps is needed. All right, okay. Right, and mention the cutting cutout. All right, the cutout of jockey pump, especially when you talk about looking into the nameplate. All right, when a jockey pump, the cutout, let's say for example, is 180. All right, 180 psi. Yeah, but when you look into the pressure gauge, it appears 150. What should you do? What should you do? Anyone? What should you do? There's some message coming in. Repeat again. If let's say the cutout in the nameplate jockey pump, cutout PSI 180, but you look into the pressure gauge, right? Nothing move. You go in, see 180. What should you do? 150. When you see the actual pressure gauge, it's 150, but the jockey pump cutout is 180. What should you do? Anyone? This is something that is very, very practical. You will face this problem, I tell you.
Check the pressure switch.
Check pressure switch. Okay. Usually pressure switch there's one or two lah. You will need to check the pressure switch as well as what? Because what has went wrong? What has went wrong during this kind of observation?
Valve.
Sorry?
The valve will actually sometimes went wrong.
The valve. What kind of valve? Because you see, inside the sprinkler pump room, all the valves supposed to all open one. Because until the control valve, that main control valve, right, that one is also open.
Yeah.
It will be in open position. Oh. So okay. So you see, I think through again. Nameplate jockey pump cut out at 180, meaning to say that when jockey pump, right? When jockey pump comes in, for example, the cut in, let's say it's 170, for example. You draw 170, jockey pump cuts in. Then you go up, you push the pressure up to 180, then you cut off. So when this thing is being stated in the nameplate, meaning that so-called the table you can see, usually in red. Cut out pressure for the jockey pump at 180, then it will stop automatically. All right, things doesn't move. It means that the pressure in that pipe, all right, it must have 180 psi. That is the pressure that is in the system when it's in the resting mode. Right, everything get ready to fight, meaning get ready to fight any fire. So the pressure that is needed is 180. All right, when the pressure gauge give me different readings, some show 180, some show 150, 150, then yes, you tell your story is something is wrong, something is wrong. But both pressure tell me 150, then something there's nothing wrong, meaning to say that someone have adjusted the cutting cutout pressure of the jockey pump. And this can be only rectified by your service provider. All right, so important, please, if you do all this visual inspection thing, then the fire protection guy will know that, in fact, you know what's happening. So this is where I think for us to come in to tell them what is the pressure that is required. All right, so that they know that we know what is the expected performance. All right, so all this, you go through experience. And that's what I want to share with you guys, because I also didn't learn that during when I'm taking the lessons. It's always true that on the ground, inspection after inspection, visit after visits. That's why we also come to us and say, oh, this is something that we need to take note. Right?
Just to check, you said just to check, you say the pipe is actually 180, right? 180 this PSI before you actually the jockey pump cuts off. Am I right to say?
Yes.
Okay. Then initially you said the pipe is actually at 180 pressure, PSI pressure, right? But initially when you actually start the whole thing, the jockey pump may not be actually you will actually start the jockey pump before it cut off because the pressure is not there yet initially. Am I right to say?
Sorry, repeat your question. You are saying 180 degree, huh?
Because your pipe itself is actually is 180, right?
Yep.
180, yeah, 180 psi is throughout is a pressure you pressure at 180 psi, right?
Yep.
But when you do the testing, after the testing, it's actually it become you won't be actually at 180, right? So you have to restart again, and then actually the jockey pump will start it until 180, it will cut off, then the whole system standby. That's normally practice, right?
You ask me whether how to tune it, really I don't really see that tuning part yet. But that can be adjusted by the fire protection vendors. As what I mentioned to you when we do that visual inspection, why I look at jockey pump cutout, because that is the pressure that was being so-called the system had designed for, that once the jockey pump have pushed the pressure 180, it cuts off automatically without activating the alarm. All right. So that 180 pressure, right, PSI, I will deem as this is the pressure that the system being designed for. This is the pressure that we should maintain during that standby mode for the sprinkler system. All right. So that's why for that resetting and whether to tune it, I'm ready to have would know how to do it. But I think usually what I do is really get the vendor in to say that, hey, I want to see this at the next month. I want to see this happening, right? Unless really I got a chance to see how to tune it, but I don't know how they actually tune it. But the thing is that activation, the sensitivity of the jockey pump, electric pump, or even diesel pump, right? This will be able to adjust according to the setting that they can set, because jockey pump definitely will be the first one to kick in. All right, because if imagine there is someone some leakages, right? Jockey pump can push back. If not, you consistently have fire alarm going on in the building. That's why jockey pump is the one that push back 180. But if jockey pump unable, all right, to push back the pressure to 180, it keep on dropping, even at a very slow pace, but it's still dropping. All right, when it hit, let's say 150, yeah, the electric pump is supposed to kick in. So that testing, in fact, is supposed to happen during your monthly inspection or monthly, the servicing or maintenance of your sprinkler pump or your wet riser pump. All right. So every building is different because definitely they need to look at the most remote location that able to hit the minimum pressure, so that at the sprinkler head, all right, that spray pattern can be created. And that's why there is this overlapping of spray pattern, all right, at the end of the so-called the system itself. Definitely, they will not test every single location. What they do is really get the most remote one, all right, to test it out and to see. Because once the most remote, meaning the highest point from the sprinkler pump room, that will be deemed as the most weakest point. Weakest point in the sense that the pressure will be the lowest. But that lowest pressure, right, will need to hit the minimum pressure that we want. Right? If not, then you will not be effective. All right. Okay. Great, let's move on. Okay, so red riser, they will do their pressure and flow rate test. So statically, there's nothing move. Yep, it's less than 8 bar. So it must be less than 8 bar. All right. They will actually go and test this with nothing moving. But when we talk about running pressure, it's about 3.5 to 5.5. That's the running so-called pressure. All right. Then for the stack one, let's say for one stack, right? The 1 or 2 landing valve, usually they will have that so-called, normally the topmost fuse will open. All right, because you want to make sure that it's not just one level, probably 2 or 3 levels. That's the actual firefighting condition. things may happen because it may get 2, 2 floors, even 3 floors. All right, just like when you test about 110 Newton, right? We also assume that the fire floor and the last or the so-called the main door at the level 1 is open, but I still maintain 110 Newton, right? So that is where the testing will need to be applied based on a situation that is as close as the real situation. All right, so flow rate residential 27 liters per second, but for non-residential, industrial, commercial is 30 liters per second. Right, this is the flow rate, meaning the amount of water for every second, I should get 38 liters of water to fight a fire. Okay. So sprinkler system, I think sprinkler system, is something that I say is very important. Without it, then a lot of things cannot be done. A lot of safety measures or things that I want to do will be restricted. That's why I see in Singapore context, mostly you'll see sprinkled building. All right, even for those high-rise, not high-rise, those premium residential unit, you can see sometimes they also even have sprinkler system. All right, and that's where how costly all this premium residential unit, not really just to hotel or to those public or industrial or non-residential buildings. So it depends on the developers and how you want to build this. But for all this sprinkler layout, all right, so you always based on what? On the purpose of that tenanted space. What are the things that I want to store? What are the things that I will expect the fire will becomes based on the assumption? All right, so all these are based on assumption, right? So through the years of fire occurrence, that's where they will base on the so-called assumption to have that, oh, this is the minimum flow rate that I should have. Where is the sprinkler head? All right, left, right, or up, down, longitude, latitude. So what is the distance between one sprinkler head to the other? All right, so all these will play a part. All right, so sprinkler head, please do not paint over as what is mentioned here. Do not obstruct it as well. All right, this is the so-called concealed sprinkler system. All right, this is what we see in most of the office building. All right, these days I think sooner or later you hardly to see all this false ceiling. I think a lot of new buildings, all these are go without the false ceiling installation. Right, then this is the protecting so-called the guard. All right, usually once you can raise up your hand, you can reach it. Like for example, it's 2 meters or 2 meters plus and 3 meters. Usually you have this guard to be installed. You let's say during your walkabout or inspection, you check, hey, this sprinkler head is so low. How come no one put the protection? You can take photos to recommend that actually is supposed to install the protective metal guard. Right, directional flow. I think newer building they will have. Older building, yes, they may or may not. It depends, but I would say in most cases they don't have. All right, so you must see whether what is the direction of flow and what is the system. By looking into the schematic drawing, roughly will tell you a story where is the direction of flow. All right, then the flow switch. So this flow switch, if we actually install in those, like for example in certain so-called location within the system. So what we do usually we test the most remote one. We let it go, then the flow switch. Then see the flow switch. Because the flow switch, as the name suggests, flow switch. So when the water is stagnant, it's actually at one angle. But when there's water moving in that concealed pipe, meaning to say that either the sprinkler head has activated or someone knocked onto it, water is discharging from that point, water flow through this flow switch. All right, so when the water flow through the flow switch activated by moving your gadget in the so-called moving water pipe that's here, then you activate the fire alarm, because it will tell the fire alarm that, hey, there's a fire because water has been discharged to fight the fire. All right, or someone has knocked the water discharged in such a way that it's just like a sprinkler head burst. We need to stop the water if let's say it's a false alarm. All right. All right, sprinkler system, you can see this is very important as what you mentioned. The main suggested is 1-3, 2-3, 3. These are the newer format that how we label all these control valves. All right, you can see this is the 2 pressure gauge. Okay, it must be uniform. When you see the pressure gauge, one is this, one is like that, one is different, because then you will also trigger you a so-called a key finding that, hey, the pressure gauge from this maybe this one spoil or this one spoil. All right. But you must make sure you must look at the so-called, because you see all these come from where? The water that's coming inside here is all from your sprinkler pump side, your sprinkler pump room. Because after sprinkler pump room, the next location, the next key location will be your control valve. So all these things you may strike, don't touch it. Don't touch it. All right, don't because of Mark tell us we're going to play. No, don't do it, because the one is all done by the fire protection guy. All right, don't get yourself involved in all these things. So this one are supposed to be managed, maintained by the M&E guy, right? All right, the cube is supposed to in check. So when we do the additional stuff, like for example, just a visual check, and do that necessary so-called recommendation, ask them to look into it, provided the protection vendors is getting into the picture to say, hey, go and find out what happened, all right, troubleshoot it, because that's your system. I'm here to have that high overview, suspecting, hey, this one may be out of so-called calibration. You need to calibrate it again, or you need to replace it. All right. So yeah, make sure clear of obstruction, especially in those risers. They must be located, so-called have this location plate. I mean, this one, let me see. Yeah, I don't see any nameplate over here. Usually it's a nameplate, just signage, then tell you, okay, CV1-3, what is the area that cover, what's the pressure, what's the flow rate. They'll tell you all these things. All right. And yeah, the waterproofing flow meters will be provided. These are the ones. All right. So what they do at the control valve area, firstly, what they want to do is make sure, all right, when they're on this control valve, that one particular control valve must give me the enough water, right? Because when they fight fire, there's only two key components. One, make sure I have enough water, all right, to fight the fire. That's what the design intend. All right. Then next, after you reach the so-called 30 liters per second, then the QP you want to see, hey, where's the pressure? I want to make sure the pressure record down. Then you look at the nameplate. Is it higher than the nameplate pressure, which is the minimum pressure? So the pressure that you see on the actual testing must be higher than whatever so-called pressure is being indicated on the nameplate. All right. All right, sprinkler tank. Yep, this one, I think this one, for example, the capacity must need to be so-called indicated. Right, the water level. Okay, I mean, this is still okay. If let's say you can see there's this water level in those transparent pipe, right? You can't see from far, then I say, hey, better, throw in one styrofoam ball that you can buy from, Popular or any stationery shop. Actually, put it in a ping pong ball and throw it. At least you can find it and see whether the water level is what we expected. All right, because all these water that coming in is through PUB. All right, it's a constant flow of water, and it's being controlled by the ball foot valve. All right, for example, this is my ball foot. This is the so-called the ball. This is the body. This is the arm. All right, it will go in such a way, because once the water increases, right, this thing will increase. But when this thing increases, you will close the water inlet. All right, over here. Then you will stick here. If let's say this arm, this flow valve is 40, meaning to say I can go in this manner. The water always overflow. When this thing is 40, meaning all the overflow will happen. When the overflow happens, you go to the sump pump. Then the sump pump, what they do? They detect water level, right? Then they will push out the water to level 1. Then it will discharge as the normal water. Let's say any property managers, whoever don't work the site, or the guard is not trained, the water can be just discharging without no one notice it. The only thing that you can notice is when you do your daily water consumption recording. All right, so this is important. I mean, this is something out of fire safety, but I think it's good for you to tell you guys that, hey, please make sure record energy, meaning the electricity consumption as well as the water consumption, because it will tell you a story. It will tell you a story whether is there any underground pipe leaking, is there any valve leaking, Is there any so-called sensors that is not working? The water keep on flushing at the tap, or it keep on flushing at the uriner, or keep on flushing at the WC area. So this information is important because you're able to see, anything that really go wrong in the building on the daily basis. All right. Okay. Then on all these is about it's all the everything paint in red color. This is the pressure gauge. You can see these are the so-called the pressure gauge provided. Yeah, this is a nameplate lah. This is a nameplate. Right, you see something similar, look at it, then you see all these are nameplate. The cutting cutout over here. Right, the cutting out, they say permanent pressure setting and charge provided. Yeah, so but we call it nameplate now. All right, so this will be the so-called the drainage valve. Right, once you turn on, the water will come out from here, the pressure will drop. Then you see, hey, whether does it kick in? I think this is where it was being able to see whether what's the pressure. All right. I think that's it. I think when you strike padlock, don't touch it. All right. Yeah, the cutting cutout pressure gauge, auto change over to emergency power. Also the standby pump. Because in your control panel, right, you can switch duty pump, not duty pump, or standby. So usually every month they come in, right? Okay, January you will do the duty. Then February you'll be the duty. March go back to the first pump. So they alternate it, all right, on a monthly basis. So that as much as we see, all right, the pump will have very similar lifespan. If you get someone totally bullshit one, they totally don't care. They just duty let you duty for a year, let you duty for another 2 to 4 floor. Then the lifespan will not be very close. All right, just that a certain pump or certain for example a car, up to certain years, the mileage will tell you a story, right? Whether this has really reached their lifespan, whether can we expect this continue to run for the next 5 years or 10 years. So that duty standby that's critical. I mean critical in the sense that make sure that your pump is being utilized on a regular basis as much as possible. All right, as much as possible. Right. Okay, so sprinkler burst, that one is for FC inspection, but usually so far I don't really see they really test it lah. So probably during the testing commission during the TOP side, before TOP, then probably they'll do it just to make sure it overlaps, right? The sprinkler head is operational, all right, and also the alarm can be sound off, and also the signal must be correctly received. All right, that's where the monthly testing is so important. Make sure that start alarm panel and MAP, the main alarm panel, right, got the correct signal. All right, okay. Wow, sorry, I've been talking almost 8 o'clock. Let me see whether it's getting ending. Okay, sorry guys, overshot. You want to take a break now or just go through everything, then we take a break?
Break.
Okay, sorry. I didn't really notice it. So let's take a 20 minutes break. Then I'll stop here. Then I'll stop the recording as well. All right, okay.